It's 10 years since Kosovo declared independence, almost 20 since the end of the war here. After many delays, Kosovo has a new war crimes court, but many people want to see it scrapped before it's even up and running. All this has landed up on the desk of the Prime Minister, Ramush Haradinaj, who's my guest here in Pristina. The West has told him that if the court is stopped, he can pretty much forget about joining NATO or the EU. What's he going to do? Ramush Haradinaj, welcome to Conflict Zone.
Thank you. Thank you.
In 2015, Kosovo agreed that the so-called specialist chambers would be set up in The Hague to try war crimes or allegations of war crimes relating to the conflict in Kosovo. Now some politicians here want to scrap that court before it's even started. Is it going to go ahead or not?
A court exists. It's created. The vote is in Parliament, and it's a constitutional amendment being voted. The idea of MPs, it's related to procedures related to that court, but it's not in a level of stopping the court.
Really? Because 43 MPs have signed a petition, haven't they? They want to stop the court before it's even started.
The court itself, it's 80 votes, it's 2/3, it's amendments of our constitution have agreed in that. It's a law on proceedings of the court that MPs initiated an abrogation in an idea to amendment the existing law, but it don't reach the level of stopping the court itself.
So the court will go ahead?
Court exists. Court is created through constitutional amendments, and it is not in question.
You had a joint statement. There was a joint statement, January the 4th, by Germany, Britain, Italy, France, the US. They warned that any move to stop this court would risk everything that Kosovo has achieved. Anyone who supports this, they said, will be rejecting Kosovo's partnership with our countries, including Kosovo's integration into the EU and NATO. So the stakes here are very high, aren't they?
They are. We are aware of that as Kosovo. In fact, Kosovo satisfied in the past its obligation towards international law and national law. So there is no doubt that Kosovo will continue and will stay committed to satisfy its obligation towards national and international law.
But not if you try to amend the way the court operates.
The MPs, the initiative that exists in the parliament, as I stated, it's not a decision. It's an initiative of MPs.
I know it's an initiative, but the point is whether it goes anywhere or not.
It looks no.
It looks not. Really, it's not going to go anywhere.
No.
One of your newspapers called this the most serious and dramatic clash between the highest state institutions of Kosovo and the West. It describes the attempts against the court as a signal of panic within the ranks of the Kosovo leadership. Are you panicking about this court?
Personally?
Personally, or your colleagues?
It is a concern related to the court, and in number of people here. They consider this as unjust, as an institution of law that does only selected alleged crimes and not all everything what's happened here in the past, but no fear, no personal fear, no other fear.
The EU representative has said this is not a biased court. This is not a court that is restricted to one nationality or the other. She's made that quite clear. There is no bias. This is not an unfair court. Your president has said this is a historically unfair court. It's not.
We hear from different experts, law experts, nationals and internationals, as a lost opportunity to treat everything in equal way, all the alleged crimes, and to satisfy the right of all victims on this. So as this is sourced to a report of an MP in the past, a European MP, parliamentarian Dick Marty, it's focused mainly on the particular events of the past. So it's supposed that it's only ethnically directed towards the former KLA people.
Well, the EU says it isn't. There's no restriction on that. The EU representative said it is not restricted to Albania.
I can not argument this further. We hear from different experts that, in fact, that's the case. This is ethnically oriented only.
You were indicted and acquitted twice in The Hague. If the new court summons you, will you go?
Yes.
You will?
Yes.
Your brother Daoud warned in December that former members of the Kosovo Liberation Army would intervene to prevent any arrests that may be ordered by the court. He said there is no KLA fighter that will not join in to help stop arrests.
This is not true. This is not his statement. He did say it will reactivate the feelings of the KLA. In fact, all the courts in Balkans, or all the trials, there was not only the idea of satisfying the right of victims or the rule of law, but it was the idea of peace. So with continuing, I would say, hunt after former KLA, the feelings of KLA, the feelings of liberation, the feeling of sacrifice of the past will be reactivated in our society.
But he was quoted as saying there is no KLA fighter that will not join in to help stop arrests.
That's not true. Might be translation mistake.
So he was encouraging people to resist arrest?
No, sir. I am here. He did. I do believe that the fact that former KLA people are back in trials after 20 years of the war will reactivate the feeling of the times of KLA and of the war. In the period of our life that we need a sustainable peace, we need, let's say, forgiveness, not to forget, but to forgive and to look future. So this brings us back in the past in a way. This is true.
Isn't justice much more important?
Always.
People get justice?
Always, but we offered ourselves to justice during the time of United Nations administration here for 8 years, to ICTY, Tribunal for Former Yugoslavia, and to EULEX. So 3 institutions of international community of rule of law treated the justice here. So this is the fourth.
There is no statute of limitations on
we
war
agree,
crimes,
but it is the 4th time. This creates from Kosovo an exception from a country that was a victim during the conflict.
But you know why they want to take Kosovars and other people to The Hague, don't you?
It could happen same here, because international community is present here with all legal experts, with every institution.
But there are 2 reasons: judicial corruption, which they cite here, and witness intimidation. Those are the reasons why the court is going to go to The Hague.
When they decided for this court to be out of Kosovo, this was the arguments. At the same time,
they're justified arguments.
But in the same time, international community has a witness program that is not related to Kosovo institution. Plus, they have judges and prosecutors that couldn't be corrupt just for the fact that they tried in Kosovo. So in the past, ICTY tried people in their own countries. From Hague, a panel of judges went to Belgrade, went to Sarajevo to judge people.
People here have no faith in the judicial system. In the 2017 report, the Kosovo Democratic Institute and the Kosovo Bar Association reported that people rate the justice system here as the least trusted of their institutions. Now that's a pretty shameful indictment, isn't it?
It is, and there is a lot of concerns on the quality of rule of law here. As a young nation, young democracy, we are working hard to strengthen our institutions of rule of law. In fact, we didn't offer to judge ourselves, Kosovar citizens. We offered international judges and prosecutors to trial people, but to do it in the country.
But just this week, the EU representative spoke about high-level corruption cases here. She said the fact that so many of these cases ended without sentences or confiscations suggested that your track record wasn't really good enough to get visa liberalization, which is something you so much want from the EU.
True, the corruption and the situation on fighting corruption, it's not to somehow to applaud how much we have done, but we are aware of our challenges as society. In fact, visa liberalization, it is not only a reward to politicians, it's a reward to citizens, those that are suffering. We are Europe, we belong to Europe, our destiny is Europe. So I think punishing politicians or elites or right, but punishing a society and citizens, this is not right.
Over the years, let's just talk about witness intimidation. Over the years, one official after another has complained about the massive intimidation of witnesses from Kosovo. Some have been killed, some have committed suicide before they could give evidence. The former prosecutor at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, Carla Del Ponte, said that witnesses from Kosovo were so afraid and intimidated that they even feared to talk about the KLA presence in some areas, not to mention actual crimes. Those willing to testify had to be transferred to other countries with their entire families. Why? Why so much intimidation from Kosovo of witnesses?
In fact, I went through a trial, I myself, twice. First and retrial. All the witnesses being listed from the prosecutor presented in court. Prosecutor Serge Bramers declared in Belgrade that no intimidation, no interference, and none of witnesses in Haradinaj's case was disturbed to present in court.
Really? The appeal court spoke of serious witness intimidation that formed the context of your trial?
No. Serge Bramers stated this in Belgrade, in front of everybody in media, that in Haradinaj's case there was no record of any intimidation or interference or any blockage that somebody shows in court and presents.
So, Mr. Haradinaj, according to the New York Times, 18 witnesses had to be subpoenaed because they refused to appear in your court, and others inside the courtroom said they didn't dare to testify. When
my trial was finished, in charge of the prosecution office in Hague was Serge Bramers. He stated this. The prosecutor who was sitting in front of me stated this in Belgrade. Unfortunate, media, and not only media, many are sources comes often from Belgrade. Belgrade has an agenda when it comes to Kosovo. We split through the war. It continues this reality still today. But the prosecutor his statements are present, and everybody can find where they are and what did he state.
Why has this voter intimidation that has taken place in a number of trials, you say not in yours, but in a number of trials?
Sorry, I'm quoting the prosecutor.
Yes. But I'm quoting what Carla Del Ponte said.
Carla Del Ponte launched the case, but she didn't follow it. The only person competent to spoke on my case is Serge Bramers.
I'm not talking just about your case, I'm talking about other cases as well. And why has this voter intimidation not been investigated? And why has no one been held accountable for it?
Similar story than today. That issue was in hands of internationals, as it's today.
Just in the hands of internationals?
Yes.
It's not up to the government here to investigate intimidation?
We just stated no, that the new court wanted to be in Hague because they wanted to handle a witness program exclusivity of their own.
You could have spoken out against witness intimidation. You could have said this has to stop.
Who?
You.
I was indicted, and
but when you were first prime minister.
When I received an indictment, I did something that a dignitary does. Next morning, I was in Hague voluntarily. I faced trial for 8 years. I served the justice for 8 years to clean my name. So this is my duty, and I did it.
In 2016, Charles Hardaway, a prosecutor from the EU Rule of Law mission here, said witnesses were being intimidated by senior politicians to change their stories. In some cases, he said, names of protected witnesses have actually been revealed on social media, including Facebook. But again, no one has been prosecuted.
But then he should be going a little bit further, mentioning the name, who that politician, to the which witness and all, because to speak on general is difficult, not only for me, but for everybody.
Still not worth investigating, though, here, if this is still going on?
We never received a formal report or something or a request. Many people state what they think is right. To state, we hear today judges of EULEX stating how things went wrong in EULEX. It's European Rule of Law mission. So we keep doing what is it our homework. I keep doing what's my homework. I'm 120 days in this office. It's a governance, it's rule of law, and a cohesion of society. I work for a sustainable peace here, and this is my job.
And justice too.
Justice too. Rule of law is justice. I started by rule of law.
And no witness intimidation.
Of course, no. That's the rule of law.
But it happens all the same.
Excuse me. When you have a responsibility, deliver. Whatever I have as responsibility, I'm able to deliver on behalf of Kosovo people.
Do you still share the feeling that the Kosovo war and the war carried out by the KLA was pure, fair and legitimate, as your president said?
The war on liberation, it was not a choice. We didn't have a choice. Our lives was threatened. Half of our population was displaced. We defended our own lives and we fought for our freedom. I believe in this. I'm very proud of my role doing that war.
But some of the methods, some of the serious violations of international humanitarian law that your side was accused of, as well as the Serbs.
Allegation and accusation are one thing. Courts, what they say, it's important.
Well, people have been sentenced for war crimes from your side as well.
And whenever this happens, this is to applaud the justice, but we shouldn't generalize what has happened. Many people, very honest, those that didn't have choice, stood for their families, for their lives, and it's good to respect that.
I understand, but there were extrajudicial executions that were carried out. There were taking of civilian hostages that were carried out by your side, as well as the Serbs, weren't there?
The KLA was a volunteer force. Individuals armed themselves, being farmers, being students, being teachers, doctors, or unemployed. This is what our army was. We stood in front of a very strong force.
But they carried out extrajudicial executions.
Any action that violates the laws of the war, violates the codes of the war. We have an honorary code in ourselves as a nation that we are obliged to respect. Never treating or mistreating a disarmed, somebody who's not armed, who's not able to defend himself, or civilians, or women or children. That's not in our honorary code.
But your side didn't live up to those high standards?
In a lot that I know. In
many cases it didn't?
No, we did. We did respect this code.
You're rewriting history to a certain extent, aren't you?
No, sir. History was written by others for us, and unfortunately this is what it spread. But I was only a son of the family who lived abroad to feed my family. I came back to be with my family during critical times. I lost 3 members of my family in the war.
I understand that.
So I'd never accept somebody to offend what we went through to save our lives, just to be alive today.
Let's look at one of the other areas of concern to the European Union, to your partners in the international community at the moment, and that is the border agreement with Montenegro, the demarcation dispute. You had a deal on demarcating it. Montenegro signed it, Kosovo agreed to it, but you refused to ratify it. Again, a furious reaction from the EU over this. Why will you not ratify the border agreement with Montenegro?
First, Montenegro is a neighbor, but as well a friend. We have very close ties with Montenegro. We supported Montenegro's perspective, first to become independent, to become NATO, and we are in close ties with Montenegro. The agreement on border was not transparent towards our parliament. Signed by our representatives, but parliament was not aware, not informed in advance.
Even your previous government commission said this was a valid agreement.
Yes, we heard this from many of our representatives.
So you got rid of the commission and brought in another one that said they don't like it.
The parliament, its MPs, are people who has their votes. Presented to the parliament, we was divided. There was no enough vote. We have to ratify with 2/3. There is no 2/3 vote for that.
Haradinaj, even your Minister for European Integration, Durrata Hoxha, has slammed your own government for not respecting international obligations. On January the 23rd, she said, "We have failed to ratify the demarcation agreement with Montenegro, and this is a bad signal. This shows that Kosovo is not ready to respect international obligations. Therefore, we remain isolated even in 2018. This is from your own minister, your government.
I respect her.
She says you're not ready to respect international obligations.
I respect her view. This is an agreement achieved by Kosovo and Montenegro. Our parliament has different view. and this is reality. We still live in democracy.
But how can you be trusted? You make an agreement with Montenegro. Montenegro signs the agreement, and then you backtrack.
This is not a legacy that we are creating. This is a challenge that we are facing.
How can you be trusted in the future?
It's a legacy that we don't want to follow that. This is why difficulties of
When you have responsibilities, if agreements are signed, you have responsibilities.
True.
And your own minister says you're failing to respect international obligations.
The good part of it is we are in good communication with Montenegro. It's unfortunate that this is related with visa liberalization. We would have much more room if it wouldn't be a condition for visa liberalization for Kosovo to operate as MPs and as politicians. Unfortunately, now we are between the choice. Ratify this agreement that many MPs think it's wrong and receive visa liberalization. So this is not a good criteria in democracy.
Prime Minister, as far as the international community is concerned, you're playing games with the terms of the court, which we've already discussed. You threatened to turn your back on the demarcation deal, and yet you want the EU to help you. You complain that 5 members of the EU still don't recognize you as an independent state. You said this is a big handicap, and I hope that EU institutions will help us to change the positioning of these countries which have not recognized us. If you don't abide by agreements that you've already made, why should the EU help you with anything?
Yeah, but what comes first? We are waiting for the 5 non-recognizers for some years. Our challenges are only becoming bigger and bigger because of that situation. EU cannot deal with us as a partner. When I am in Brussels, Kosovo flag is not there. Being in such a reality, all issues then multiply and it's difficulties to be resolved.
And how are they supposed to trust you if you go back on your international obligations?
But this is no new, the fact that this is what's happening with border demarcation and with special chambers, what we call the court. So it is new. Our reality, our relations with you dates earlier than this. Unfortunately, I think EU hasn't paid enough attention in our corner, in our region, and to Kosovo itself. I don't blame EU for what is our homework, but what I ask is that all nations of EU have a, I would say, united approach towards Kosovo.
But there are rules to this club that you want to join. There are rules to the EU. And if you don't want to accept the rules, why join?
We are accepting the rules, the logic, the principles of EU. We are working hard on our internal cohesion, on living together of all our ethnic communities, including working with Kosovar Serbs. We are working on rule of law, we are working economy and in sustainable peace. My role as a former leader of the KLA is as well to have the peace, the sustainable peace, because of all arguments that I have with me. Sustainable peace, it's not only photo opportunities of the leaders, it's to make sure and to allow population of both countries to believe in peace.
And the same criticisms of your government keep coming up year after year: endemic government corruption, lack of accountability for corruption, and intimidation of the media, which is still a big problem here.
I have to come back. I was 12 years in opposition. I am only 100 days in office. I take responsibilities for what I am in charge. We are working on a very transparent way as government. Every activity of our government is transparent. We are fully open and transparent to the media. Everything of our work, it's in access of media.
Nine cases of threats and violence against journalists between January and August last year, including 1 physical attack, 2 cases of intimidation.
I strongly condemn that.
No one has been held responsible.
I strongly condemn that.
No one is ever held responsible.
I strongly condemn that. I am in office from September last year. Only mid-September last year I started this job. Our relations with media are respectful. Our media are young media as well. They have a lot to learn, as we do. We have a lot to learn, but I want to say one word in all. Hard work is happening in Kosovo, but this is homework. When it comes to issues that involves more international community, we are having some challenges. But leaving Kosovo for 20 years as unfinished business. No border demarcation, special chambers are only 2 years in table. But Kosovo conflict has ended in '99, and we are in Europe and we are left as an open issue or not finished business by Americans and by Europeans. So this will not stay forever. So some of the challenges come that we didn't do good our homework, but a lot of our difficulties are related to the readiness of Europe to move from where we are.
And they, like your Minister for European Integration, want you to respect international obligations. Are you going to respect your international obligations?
We are a responsible member of a family of nations in Europe and further.
Are
And
you
we
going to respect the international
proved to be
obligations?
responsible. We will go through our challenges in Parliament, we will go through our challenges in our own democracy, but our destiny is Euro-Atlantic. So we are committed to that.
Prime Minister, thanks very much for being
Thank
here.
you, Tim. Thank you.